Being born with a gift can be a blessing from above, but make no mistake about it, it's also a substantial responsibility. In order to make the most of an aptitude, one must learn to sharpen their skills and hone them regardless of their raw talent. And most of all, you have to work your tail off and break your back more than the next guy, if being the best is what you truly want. After all, we are all just diamonds in the rough at first. Only with ample experience, consistency, and infinite practice may we truly excel in our endeavors. Do you have what it takes? Get ready to go the extra mile as we take a look at talent on this week's episode of FYI.
Welcome to For Your Info.
En inglés.
You got it.
To this, another exciting edition of FYI for your English. It's a topic-based show, and if you haven't heard a topic you'd like to hear about, please let me know. You can find me over at my website, albertoalonso.com. Wait, scratch that. I never answer there. The best way to contact me is via social media. Just search for Alberto Alonso or Alberto Alonso Ingles. And if you'd like access to a bonus episode, plus tons of other content such as PDF documents and classes with me, then you should join us over on patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. And folks, I have an announcement. Drum roll, please. There are 200 of us at the time of this recording. So thank you to all of you who are in my community. You know who you are. You get a bonus episode every week, chock full of awesome expressions and fun facts. You also get all the vocabulary in PDF documents. And if you're in our higher levels, our super duper students and our interstellar students, well, then you even have classes with me. And you can ask any of them. We have the time of our lives, and we learn and laugh together. And I guess this is a perfect time to send a shout out to all my patrons, especially my super duper students, Marta, Javier, and Paco. And don't forget about my interstellar students, the ones who have a private class with me, as well as everything else I said before. Give it up for Carmen, Lina, Isa, Paco, David, Jose Maria, Patricio, and Edgar. Keep kicking butt, guys. And if you want to join us for more, you can join us over at patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. Now let's get this show on the road. We're here to talk about talent. And as always, we're going to start with our intro. I started out by saying, being born with a gift. And I know what you're thinking. A gift? A present? Un regalo? Well, this is another way of saying a talent. And I think when you think of it like that, well, it's something that you should take care of, that you should nurture. It reminds me of the expression, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I know we've looked at that expression on the show before. So you can call somebody talented or gifted. So I said being born with a gift can be a blessing from above. A blessing is something excellent. It reminds me of the expression, a blessing in disguise. Let me give you an example. Oh man, it hasn't stopped raining in 2 weeks. Yeah, but this is great for the plants and the trees. In the end, it's a blessing in disguise. But I didn't say a blessing in disguise. I said a blessing from above. And careful with that word. I've heard a lot of students say above. It's not above, it's above. And then I said, make no mistake about it. It's also a substantial responsibility. If you have a gift or a talent, you've got to use it, because if you don't use it, you're always going to wonder what if. Then I said, in order to make the most of an aptitude, a skill, a talent, a gift, call it what you will, you must learn to sharpen your skills. And to sharpen means to make them better, stronger, to get better at it, to hone them. This is like to polish. You say pulir, regardless of your raw talent. So let's use Messi, for example, one of the most talented footballers, if not the most. And yes, he was born with raw talent, but he had to develop that talent. He had to make the right decisions. He had to put in the time and energy it takes to make that talent work. He didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm great at football. Great. I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. Quite the contrary. And I know they always say Cristiano worked his butt off and Messi was born with a natural talent. I think both of them did both. Both of them have a natural talent and both of them have worked their tails off. You don't get to the elite. You don't get compared or called the GOAT if you're not excellent. So just being called that is amazing. And these two guys have worked their tail off. Another way to say it is to break your back. And then I use the expression to be diamonds in the rough. You say the same thing, un diamante en bruto. Just be careful. We don't say diamonds, we say diamonds. The A is silent. And then I said only with ample experience, consistency, and infinite practice may we truly excel in our endeavors. Hey, does all this sound familiar? It's like mastering a language. I always say you can't take out the time and energy in anything. If you want something, if you want it bad enough, then you've got to put in the time, the energy, and the effort. And this we can apply to learning a language. This is why practice has to be fun. When we're in class, it has to be fun because repetition can be boring. It's all about the approach in the end. And then you might have recognized the word excel. You say Microsoft Excel, Excel. We say excel. It comes from the word excellent. Does it ring a bell? It means to be great, sobresalir, destacar. And your endeavors are the things you set out to do. And then I ask the question, do you have what it takes? Another way to say this is, are you cut out for it? We can also use it in the negative. I'm not cut out for this. Esto no es para mí. No estoy hecho para esto. And then I used one of my favorite expressions, get ready to go the extra mile. And to go the extra mile is to do more than is expected of you. So as always, the intro is chock full of great vocabulary. You could just listen to the intro of this show every week, and that would be enough vocabulary to learn new stuff every week. But I want you to listen to the whole show and the bonus episode, which in this week's bonus episode, we're going to look at some fun facts. We'll also take a look at the most talented people to ever walk the planet. We'll hear from Michael Jordan. We'll also take a look at some unorthodox talents. And we'll look at the dark side, talking about these talent shows and exploiting talent. We'll get into that stuff a little bit later in the bonus episode. Also, we'll look at some vocabulary and idioms. All that and much more. So join us in the bonus episode. All right, so as always, we need to define what talent is. And when I looked it up, it didn't give me the word talent, it gave me the word aptitude. Does this mean you have a high IQ? You say coeficiente intelectual? Okay, maybe you've got a high IQ, but your EQ is very low, your emotional coefficient. So it's not just about having a high IQ. Let's get that out of the way. An aptitude is a component of a competence to do a certain kind of work at a certain level. Outstanding aptitude can be considered talent or skill. Aptitude is inborn, potential to perform certain kinds of activities, whether physical or mental, and whether developed or undeveloped. We just talked about developing talent. Aptitude is often contrasted with skills and abilities, which are developed through learning. The mass term ability refers to components of competence acquired through a combination of both aptitude and skills. Blah, 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 blah. In a nutshell, and according to Cambridge, a natural skill or ability to be good at something, especially without being taught. And that's one we need to look at. Good at. Are you good at it? Notice how I put those two words together. I don't say good at. I say I'm good at singing. He's good at cooking. Good at, good at. It's not good plus at, it's good at. One word. And the best way to practice this is make a list of things you're good at and things you aren't good at. And of course, say that list aloud. And I want you to put emphasis on the good at, not good at, not good at, until it becomes innate, like talent. So I looked at a lot of lists over here. Tons of lists of who people consider the most talented people to ever walk the planet. And there was one person that was not only on every list, but he topped everyone's list. And can you guess who I'm referring to? All right, I'll give you a clue. He was born in 1452. Nothing? He was Italian. Well, what did he do? ¿A qué se dedicaba? Okay, hold on, let me take a breath here. He was an active painter, draftsman, engineer, scientist, theorist, sculptor, and architect.
Great Scott!
But he also studied subjects such as anatomy, astronomy, botany, cartography, painting, and paleontology. You could call him the Renaissance man, the textbook definition. Do you know who I'm talking about? Of course, Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, to be exact. I think he is arguably the most talented person to ever walk the planet. And it's not just my opinion. As I said, he was at the top of list after list after list that I looked at. But we'll look at other people who made the list in the bonus part. Let's take a look at some common kinds of talent. Some of my talents before we get started. Nobody plays the air guitar quite like I do. I am a master air guitar player. Okay, all right. Well, hey, I really get into it. Just ask my wife. But let's look at different kinds of talents. What we'll do is we're going to put them into categories. The first category is artistic and creative skills. Now, let's put it this way. Creativity will help you out no matter what field you're in. Being creative is important, period. And Michael Jordan confirms it. We'll hear from him in the bonus episode. Some artistic and creative skills: painting, writing, storytelling, dancing, graphic design, woodworking, composing music, knitting, pottery, even origami. And obviously, we can include musical instruments as well. I'm sure you guys can think of some more. Then we've got athletic talents and physical abilities. This is stuff such as archery, swimming, horseback riding, sword fighting, acrobatics, juggling, ice skating, climbing, hiking, and one of my favorites, skipping stones. You know that. That's what you do when you're a kid. You go down to the lake, you find a flat stone, and you see how many times you can skip it across the water. That's another one of my talents I didn't mention before. Oh, and how can I forget? I'm a pretty mean cook, too. Now, mean means desagradable, but in this case, it means lo hago muy bien. Well, you'll have to ask my wife and my daughter. But I've got to admit, whatever dish I'm making, the secret ingredient is always TLC. Tender, loving care. Ese toque de cariño. And when I say cooking, I don't mean baking. Oh man, I'm horrible at putting things in the oven. But grilling, sautéing. But the moment it comes to baking a cake, man, I don't know why, I just can't make a cake. And you know what? That takes the cake. Do you know the expression? That takes the cake. Eso se lleva la palma, you say in Spanish. It's another way of saying that's the best or worst thing I've heard. And what about you guys? Are you thinking about your talents? Do you have any artistic or creative skills? Or maybe athletic or physical talents? Another category, people skills. Man, this is so important. Even if you're not a people person, you need to know how to be one, because we all have to deal with people. Some skills that are really good and considered people skills, listening. The power of persuasion, so being very persuasive. Being a leader, how do you practice that? And I think, again, that's an innate thing too. You can become a better leader, but some people are just natural-born leaders. They're alpha personalities instead of beta personalities. I myself, for example, I've always been a leader. I've never wanted to be. It's just the position I took. I would get to a party and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. But I'm talking about since I was a little kid. I remember even once in Puerto Rico, we were in the rainforest and there were like 30 people there and we were looking, it was like a little bridge there. And we were looking at this beautiful waterfall and it was just appetizing. It was just calling you to get under it because it was muggy. It was hot. I mean, we're in Puerto Rico. What do you expect? In a rainforest. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go take a closer look. I see a little trail over there, and I'm going to walk up along the side of the waterfall. And I went, and all 20 people followed me. Again, it was not something I did on purpose, but I led the group. Is it something I like? No. Again, sometimes a talent can be a curse, too. Other people's skills are parenting. That means being a good parent. Learning how to charm people or win them over, or being empathetic and knowing how to comfort people. What about debating? That's such a huge skill. And I don't just mean in the office. Sometimes you need to debate at home with your wife. I love you, honey. Negotiating, public speaking, that's so important. Even telling jokes. And I don't mean being a stand-up comedian, but I mean having a sense of humor. Knowing when to put a little joke in there from time to time to lighten up a situation. Now we'll take a look at some academic and intellectual skills. Spelling. You're either good at it or not. I remember when we were kids. Of course, we all practiced the same in school, but there were people who just had a natural proclivity to spelling, while others had a natural proclivity to math. And that's good. You should know what you're good at. Your strengths, your weaknesses. It doesn't mean you give up and you don't do your weaknesses, but you know you need to be a little bit more patient. Other academic and intellectual skills are learning foreign languages. The good news about that one is the more you speak, the easier it gets. There's also memorization. I remember some kids were great at memorizing things. And it didn't mean that the other kids couldn't. It just means that they had to work double as hard. And then I remember some people who were speed readers. I'm a slow reader, but also I like to take my time. Math, oh man, that's my slogan, and I think it's the worst because I think I almost sabotaged myself. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. Keep saying it, Alberto, and it will become the truth. Then you've got people who are really good at bookkeeping. That means keeping track of your expenses and all that jazz. Others are good investors. Even solving a crime is an intellectual skill. You have to have a lot of creativity and a lot of talent and imagination if you want to be a good detective. And then you've got some other more dubious talents. Talents such as lying. Some people are really good liars. They lie through their teeth. They're compulsive liars. They believe their lies. Other people master cheating in a casino, on a partner. You've also got forgery or fraud. Forgery is signing somebody's signature. It reminds me of the movie Catch Me If You Can. Some people are really good at spying. But again, you can develop that and you can go work for a government agency that's into spying. Some people are really good at gambling. They learn the game, they learn the odds, and their life is going into the casinos or these online betting sites and at least trying to come out on top. But if you know the game, it gives you an advantage. You know the stakes, you know the odds. Some people are great robbers. They've been robbing banks or breaking into homes or museums for decades without getting caught. It's a talent. Is it one that should be celebrated? No. Like computer hacking. That's a talent, being able to hack a system. And then you know what happens in the end. These hackers end up being employed by the people they were hacking. The perfect example is Frank Abagnale from Catch Me If You Can, which we just mentioned. In the end, he was hired because who would recognize a forged check better than him? Then you've got safe cracking. These are people who know how to crack a safe. You say una caja fuerte. And you've even got professional killers. You call them sicarios, we call them hitmen. These people are professionals. They don't only know how to carry out a killing, but then they know how to dispose of the body and disappear into the night. It reminds me of Richard Kolklinski, I think his name is. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's called The Iceman, Confessions of a Hitman. And this guy literally got paid to kill people. And it became his art, his skill. Again, we're talking about dubious talents right here. Other talents are rhyming. You can maybe become a poet or a hip-hop artist if you know how to rhyme. You've got lip reading. Here's one. Is lip syncing a talent? You say hacer playback. Because I remember in school we had a talent show where we had to lip sync. And I said, but wait a second. We're being judged on our stage performance then, not on our singing ability. I think a huge talent is being a handyman, knowing how to fix everything. My friend Sean, doesn't matter what it is, he'll figure out a way to fix it, even if he doesn't know it. That is an amazing talent that can save you a lot of money in the long run. So the same way there are talents that can be used for bad, there are many that can be used for good. What about gardening? If you know how to garden, you don't only have a nice garden, but you've got food to eat as well. So repairing, gardening, this is kind of DIY stuff. DIY is do it yourself. And I include plumbing in that too. Plumbing, carpentry, stone masonry. So these are just some of the talents that I came across. What are your talents? What are you good at? What are the things you're not good at? And it doesn't mean you can't get good at them like we said before. It just means you have to work harder in that area. Also, as we say in English, stick to what you know. Quédate con lo que sabes. It's good to leave your comfort zone and say, I want to be a professional ice skater. But also, you've got to be realistic. Do you know how many hours it takes to be a professional ice skater? Have you guys heard of the 10,000-hour rule? Supposedly, if you dedicate 10,000 hours to something, you will become an expert, a master. Now, I don't know if that's a rule, but I guess it's a general rule. Obviously, some things are easier to master than others. We're going to get going in just a moment over here, but we've got a lot of exciting stuff to look at in the bonus episode. We're going to look at some weird talents. We'll also hear from Michael Jordan, one of the most talented people to ever walk the planet. And he'll tell us how creativity and talent are one and the same. In other words, you can't have one without the other. And you would think sports, you don't need creativity for sports. You just got to get the ball in the hole. Yeah, but if you want to be the best, if you want to stand out, then you need to fly through the air like Air Jordan. There have been many, many basketball players who can score, but with that style, with that flair, with that dedication, Jordan is in a class of his own. If you haven't seen the documentary, there's a documentary about Michael Jordan and Nike and his early years. Really interesting vocabulary and a fascinating story, even if you don't like basketball. As I said, we'll also take a look at the dark side. Some of these talent shows have had some bad results. And I don't mean coming in last place. I mean there have been many suicides. And we'll look at tons of idiomatic expressions that have to do with talent. We're going to say goodbye now with Fran Lebowitz. Fran Lebowitz, if you didn't know, she's an American author, public speaker, and she has a really funny Netflix documentary called Pretend It's a City. And this is from that documentary. It's her talking about talent. Let's give it a listen.
The main thing writers need, or painters, or any other kind of artist, is talent. And the great thing about talent is that it is the one thing, the only thing I can think of, that is absolutely randomly distributed throughout the population of the world. It has nothing to do with anything. You cannot buy it. You cannot learn it. You cannot inherit it. You can't. It's not genetic. Okay? It is just like sprinkled like, sand around the world, and it could come up anywhere. Now, of course, there are many places where you might have this talent, but you have no ability to express it. Okay? There are many places like that. But, and it is probably the reason why people are always, especially in this country, looking for explanations for success of a book, or, when I say success, I don't mean commercial success, other than talent. Because it's infuriating to people.
Well, there you go. I think that sums it up quite nicely. That'll do it for the first part. I sure hope you'll join us in the bonus episode of this week's FYI.